Yeah, I got home from work yesterday, and I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna work on the topics, and I'm gonna get a couple things rolling for the podcast, read some links and all that." She goes, "I got a question for the podcast." I said, "You do? You do? Well, all right. I guess there's no point of no return now for her. She's asking questions on the podcast, so it'll be the dolphin question when we get to it. Let's see. You guys have anything? I got all the topics. You guys got the email, and
reading it now.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't expect anything less. All right, so
at least we moved to reading it just now.
This is true. All right, boys.
I actually read it yesterday.
Oh, good.
You send those emails out the day before?
I do, believe it or not.
I read it, but I don't remember what it said.
That's the way I like it. Remember, we'll just dig in on any topic. We don't have to get to them all, but we'll get in, and I'm going to start it right now, and we're going to go dry because I think it worked out pretty good last week with just putting the intro and outro.
I want to talk about all the fake pro staffers again, man. It's that time of year where all these guys are advertising, and you look at their shit, and they got pro staff Daiwa, pro staff Sims, pro staff blah.
All right.
It's like,
all right.
Dang, just because you can buy shit doesn't make you pro staff.
All right, that might make the podcast.
And then they're advertising. I got dates open for spring break.
Yeah, open boat. That's my favorite is open boat. All right, here we go. We're going dry. Welcome into the podcast, the Bite Me podcast. John Lopez sitting right here with three of my favorite fellas on the planet. They're all pro staff, by the way. We might have to mention that. Dean Thomas, he's pro staff somewhere. Caleb McCumber, he's pro staff somewhere. And Scott Null, he's pro staff somewhere. I don't know if I'm pro staff somewhere, but occasionally I'll get a discount. So I don't know if that's. I'm going to claim it. I'm pro staff. I'm pro staff at Anglers Anonymous. There you go. I'm going to put it on my shirt. Anglers Anonymous pro staff right there. I'm sure Mike won't mind that at all. And Fishing Tackle Unlimited, yeah, sure. Emily's real good to me over there. So I'm gonna start claiming it. We'll get into that in just a second. This is the Bite Me podcast, and a couple of things before we get into some topics that I definitely want to get into. I always say this, and you guys have been awesome. Don't forget that you can subscribe anywhere you get a podcast. Don't forget that you can download. You can watch us live here on YouTube, which is where we're recording live right now, and we get a lot of followers on there. But we also say this every week, and that is don't forget to join the Bite Me group page. Bite Me group page, man, we could smell it. We got to think of something. Maybe we'll brainstorm here with our live audience. What do we need to do? We have 9,800 plus members of the Bite Me Facebook group page. We got to come up with something for 10,000. I don't know if anybody will have a good idea there. Maybe we'll do a random drawing for something somewhere that our guys can put together. But tell your friends, if you're just listening to the podcast for the first time, don't forget to join the Facebook group page. When we get to 10,000, we'll come up with something on that. In the meantime, let's get started. A couple of just kicking it around with the boys here to start. If you're watching us live, Dean came in hot. He was coming in hot. Said, man, we got to talk about the fake pro staffers again. All right, let's start right there. We'll start talk about what is a fake pro staffer, Dean, and then you guys just jump in as you see fit.
Man, it's somebody who claims to represent all these companies and all these products, but they aren't really in communication with the manufacturers or the process or anything that goes with it. No feedback and such as that. A lot of companies will allow people to purchase products at a discounted rate.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're talking to one.
And they so when it comes to people representing themselves as pro staff, there's a bit of a misrepresentation is the nicest way I can put that. Mm-hmm. Or I could say there's a lot of fake ass bullshit going on in the world.
Either way, we're good with that. It's a podcast.
So there's a lot of variety in between that. But, there are a lot of companies that associate themselves with guys who are out there every day and actually wearing out their products and getting feedback on the products. And that feedback becomes innovations in their products. To me, it's what represents a pro staff. It's somebody who's out there using the gear, testing the gear, and putting it through its paces. So, beware of the ones that misrepresent that pro staff label.
Dean woke up and chose violence this morning. Didn't he?
He really did. So Caleb, they do it.
Something got under his skin.
Caleb, they do it. I'm guessing. You tell me, to kind of make themselves sound more important or whatever, so they can book more trips. Or what is the idea behind there?
Yeah, I think it's clout, and I've been there, and Scott's been there, and Dean's been there. Where, we got our first couple of sponsors, and we were real excited about it, and we thought that we had really big wieners because of it. As you get longer,
No pun intended.
As you get older and more into it, it becomes less of a thing. In fact,
you got an Oscar Mayer sponsorship?
I did. I got the truck and everything. I would pull a boat to the ramp in the Wienermobile in a
I would
jiffy.
so do that. I would absolutely do that.
But over the past little while, pro staff has kind of become a buzzword, a thing that's kind of cringy, and that's why a lot of people, Sims, Grundens, the guys that are actually the guys, they call them ambassadors now. That a lot of my sponsors, if you talk to them, they say we don't even accept pro staff. We just have some guys we work with. Period.
Yeah.
The pro staff thing is becoming watered down in a big way because of the points that Dean's making. But hey, if it makes you feel cool, at the end of the day, you're promoting. I won't say promoting for everybody, because some people are just saying it to say it and not many are watching. But the ones that are getting watched, they're promoting a product at no cost, maybe 40% to the 40% off to the manufacturer. But like Dean said, it's not overly special. They're selling you a product for the same price they'd sell it to Academy or Anglers Anonymous. You're paying wholesale prices is what you're doing if you've even hit that 40% off mark. But me personally, I'm not as pissed off as Dean is right now. I've had a decent day. If you want to put
we can fix that.
Hey, put hashtag CapKOTV on whatever you want. You can put my picture on your jersey. You don't even have to ask questions. I'm down. And that's the funny thing is not so much anymore, but used to, I was the guy at Laguna that made the final yes or no decision on things. And man, I would get 1 or 2 emails a week. Hey man, would it be okay if I put Laguna on my jersey? And as long as I looked you up on Facebook and you weren't a total piece of garbage, hell yes, you can. I'll send you the logo right now, because other people, we got to pay them to do it. So yeah, if you want to do it for free, that's the thing about my jersey that I wear. If it's not a deal that is very beneficial to me, you don't get a spot on my jersey. And that's where the maturement in the I don't know, is it maturement a word? That's where that comes.
Maturity?
Through. I don't know. Maturity just sounds weird in that spot.
And not as weird as maturement.
Yeah. Well, long story short, when you get to the point in your career where you look at those things as kind of as not as fancy as you thought they once were, and that's whenever it becomes, and hey, if you want to give me 40% off, that's great and everything, but don't expect a whole lot back from me other than I may talk about it on Bite Me once in a while, and there may be pictures of me using it. If you want me to promote you, hashtag you, put you out there, there's going to be an equal give and take.
Scott, you actually have been pro staff, so define it, and what do you think?
I mean, we all have been, but it's like Dean said, it got watered down in the beginning. The pro staff thing kind of meant something. The companies trusted you to represent their product, and over time, you had all the hangers-oners that just kind of wanted to. Facebook changed a lot of that. Everybody, that's a red flag to me. When you look at somebody on the Facebook, you kind of do a little background check on them. I was on the other side of that. I had, I represented all these different companies as a salesman. And so I got tons of pro staff people wanting to come on and all that. One of the quickest ways to weed through them, and I told Caleb this, and I think he used it at Laguna. Hey, could you send me a resume?
Yeah.
Your fishing resume? You never see it. It never shows up. But then you look them up on Facebook, and next thing you know, they've got it under their deal, pro staff for whatever company I was working with.
Yeah.
Guys would come up, hey man, I won the dingbat, something lake that you ain't never heard of tournament, bass fishing club tournament, and I use your rods. Can I get some for free?
I thought I won that tournament. I'm pretty sure I won the dingbat one year.
Lord, I mean, I had part of East Texas and Louisiana with all the bass guys, and they were way worse than the saltwater guys. I mean, they were terrible about it. But I had one that when I took over for one rod company, he was pro staff, and they were allowing him to buy rods, just at a discount or buy rods. That's cool. I go over to one of my dealers in Louisiana, and he's selling rods in the parking lot.
Oh, he's selling them?
Oh, yeah.
That happened in Laguna too. Yeah.
Yeah. He had rods that he had bought a whole bunch of rods and was sitting out in the parking lot on a Saturday selling rods in my dealer's parking lot. So he was no longer allowed to buy product.
I guess not.
But there's so much of that goes on, and like Dean said, the true pro staffers are the guys. What it was meant to be was a professional fisherman representing your company
and testing and advising and all that.
I mean, I've had I work with one rod company, and they have the Scott Knoll ISO test, and they send me rods that are new to the market, and I can destroy them in 3 months and tell them what is going to break in probably 2 years worth of use by the customer. This is going to go wrong. And I can usually tell them in 2 to 3 months what it's going to be. They didn't believe me at first. And then eventually that's where the Scott Knoll ISO test came from.
I got a resume once that said, I've entered a bunch of tournaments and I've even placed at a couple. That's the only sentence on the entire thing. Which I was impressed. I like, this sounds like a Laguna guy to me right here.
I kind of want to talk to that guy. I kind of want to talk. You see that trophy right there? That one that I'm pointing at over my right shoulder? I'm pretty sure that's first place in the Dingbat Invitational. Right there.
Well, see, and that brings up a point, because I'm going to be a spokesman for the people here.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are very dang excited to win the Dingbat Invitational, and as a big
I
deal
got the plaque right there.
And if if it makes them feel good, heck yeah. And if it makes you feel good to put hashtag X company here, heck yeah. I mean, I'm not far away from whenever I was there in that spot, and it made me feel good. I liked it. But the piece of advice that I could hand out that would probably get you less cringy looks from the seasoned people and actually make you more beneficial to who it is you're trying to promote is every fish picture you post does not have to have hashtag 47 things, of which 2 of them had something to do maybe with the picture.
Yes.
That I am really big into organic stuff, and that's what's done well for the people I work with. So if I've got a picture of a fish and I'm out wading, I might say something about some wading equipment and a rod, but I'm not going to tag my, I don't have a drift stock sponsor, but that's not going to be there. And that kind of stuff. Instead of, every post is like, I couldn't have done it without these 47 people. I bet you could have.
Yeah.
and that's how people look at it. So just be a bit more, plan out what you're doing, and maybe you'll piss Dean off a lot less on a Tuesday morning.
That's right.
I'm gonna hashtag Flatlander. I mean Flat Earther.
Flat Earther.
I was going to say, what do you want? I'm actually in communications with Flatlander right now about his appearance on the Naked and Survive show. And I was like, what the hell did he do to you, Dean? He seems like a good guy.
I'm I'm gonna catch a speckled trout tomorrow. I'm a hashtag flat earthers.
I couldn't, and I couldn't have done it without a curvature. I could not have caught this fish without a curvature.
I like Morris. I like Morris on the live stream. I
Yeah.
couldn't have fished all day without Budweiser. Hashtag Budweiser.
I'll tell you. Hey,
well,
can I tell a Budweiser story real fast? It won't take but a second.
of course. Hey man, we're organic here.
I had a guy. He first
of
thing
organic.
as soon as he showed up to fish with me. Hey Cap, I want to catch a 30. I was like, oh God, here we go.
Yeah.
And the first day we caught like a couple over 25. I'm like, this is great. Second day, he goes out and it's slow. It's just slow. And this is back in the days of popping cork and shrimp for Captain Caleb. And he throws this cork out, this shrimp on it, and it's been bobbing for 5 minutes. And finally, he sets his rod in the rod holder and busts open a Bud Light, and he starts drinking it. And about 3/4 of the beer left, that cork just slowly goes under. I was like, hey, look, man, your cork went down. It's the first bob we got all day. I was like, look, man, your cork went down. He's like, oh, hell yeah. And then just keeps drinking the beer. And I was like, hey, your cork's under. And at that point, he decides it's a little bit more urgent, and he shotguns the beer, kills it, reels in the line, gets it tight, sets the hook, and it was a 31-inch trout.
Get out.
Dude, I've got it documented. And Budweiser still hasn't called me back. Thank God. It probably would have hurt me at this point. Back then.
Scott says hashtag croaker. So there you go. You could do that as well. And
I don't know.
For the record,
John, I feel like we just need to get out of here. We got two cranky old dudes right now.
Nah, the one that kills me is the guys after the tournament, and I could not have won this tournament if I hadn't had my X rod.
Mhm.
You know, if you couldn't have won it without that particular rod, chances are you ain't very good.
The main line to go to, and I'm just trying to offer advice. I'm not angry at anyone. The main line to go to is there's a lot of really awesome stuff out here, but this is my favorite, and a little short reason why. Then you validated what you're saying.
Yeah, but saying you couldn't have won, hell, I could have won it with a Snoopy rod. You know,
Look at you.
Think about what you're doing, because there's some cranky old bastards out there.
And for the record, I want to make this very public. All the thousands of people who listen to this podcast, Dean Thomas, Caleb McCumber, and Scott Knoll are officially OG Sauce pro staff. They tested it. They all tested it. Like, that's hand to God.
I gave feedback.
I owed you a sandwich today.
That is hand to God. So they are on. You can put that hashtag next time you win a tournament, Caleb. Hashtag OG Sauce. Couldn't have done it without my OG Sauce.
I could not.
And you got your cap.
Staff.
And you're
I
wearing
could
the
not
cap.
have won it.
Out there that won't give me a cap.
There you go. See, you're on pro staff, and I got you. That's a sweet cap. That's the black on black.
It is the black on black.
That's pretty sweet. OGSauce.com. Anyway, before we move on, like I said, this is I like it like this when everybody's a little frisky.
Somebody left.
Yeah. Everybody's a little frisky, and the topics just kind of roll without guidance from the teacher here. Speaking of teacher, I saw Dean and Scott. Look at Dean's got his hat on now too. Look at that. I'm gonna have to take a screenshot here in just a second.
It's like a team. We're like a team.
I saw Dean and Scott roll back laughing while Caleb was talking a second ago, and I said, those guys are texting each other about something. I guarantee you they are. You don't have to tell us what, but you were, weren't you?
No.
We don't. We don't even have to text. We communicate telepathically.
All right. Look, before we move on, I want you all to think about this while I'm taking a picture of the guys with the OG Sauce hats right here.
And Scott had his last week.
Yeah, last week. All right, lean in, Dean. Lean in, Dean. Look at that. Look at that. All right, I want you all to answer this now. We're going to get to 10,000 members of the Bite Me group page, which, by the way, thank you very, 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 very much for that. That's awesome. And secondly, what are we going to do? We got to do something at 10,000. That's huge. 10,000 members of a group page. I know I have an idea, but I don't want to speak out of turn. Caleb has got a project coming, and it's going to be something that maybe people are going to be really, really interested in. Caleb, would there be something along the lines of maybe somebody getting maybe, I don't know, a part of that somehow?
Perhaps a scholarship?
Yeah, maybe a quick scholarship and we'll randomly draw from the 10,000 members.
I need everybody to write me a 3-paragraph essay on why No, okay. Because I wouldn't read. I won't even read the emails from you. Yeah, I think we come up. I think we can come up with a scholarship or two out of this deal. I think we could do that.
Yeah, we'll do a random drawing. I can get all 10,000 names and then just do a number, number, whatever, and then we can do something like that. All right. We're still not to the topics yet, but I do want to mention this. Speaking of our listeners, carry the load. You saw Camille Knoll posted on the Bite Me group page. I posted it on my page. I tweeted about it last year. It was a really cool event. And Scott, I'll let you get the details of what carry the load is specifically. There's that dang dog I'm watching again. But what it is specifically, but it's going to raise funds for first responders, and I'll let you get all the details there, Scott. But I want as many members as possible to sign up. You can find it on Camille's page, on the Bite Me group page, and you can find it on my page. We had about 40 very, very enthusiastic people last year. And I turned to Camille at one point. I said, we can do better than this. We can do better than this. It was great. They were enthusiastic. It was fun. It's a walk of about 3 miles. But Scott, I'll let you take it from there real quick, and then we'll get into the topics. But I just want to put the call out for people to join Camille's team.
Yeah, Carry Load is a nonprofit, and they associate with a lot of other veteran nonprofits. And like Camille's with Heroes on the Water, and you go out and you gather a team together and get donations and do a little walk, and you're carrying the load for someone. That's kind of how it all started. Was a couple guys meeting up in a park, and one of them, both vets, and one of them said, "Who you carrying?" Because the guy had a lot on his mind. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of where it came from. And like this year, Camille is carrying one of my old buddies that was killed in the line of duty with Houston Police Department. And so you pick somebody and you carry the load for them. Mm-hmm. And it gives the families a chance to talk about who they lost, and it just keeps them alive, keeps them in your memories. And it's just a great organization and a great thing. You know, I'm sitting here thinking about Tino.
Yeah.
As we're talking, we worked together on the streets, and he was a Marine, and then got on the police department. But as you go out there, you commit to a particular walk. It's all over the country. It's all different cities all over the place, and you can go sign up. And like I said, Camille's put together a team for Heroes on the Water. So any donations that she gets through that benefit Heroes on the Water.
Yeah. And obviously, you know, we all have a connection to the military at some level, maybe not someone who lost their life. My grandfather lost his life because in World War I from mustard gas poisoning. My dad never met his dad because of that. My dad and my uncle served in World War II, didn't get wounded or anything. My brother, well, he's my cousin, but he grew up with us, was attacked by a tiger and got a Purple Heart in Vietnam. But so whatever your connection is, you know someone or know someone who knows someone who had someone that they lost. So yeah, join the team. It's going to be on Memorial Day, and we got a quadruple at least. I think it was about 45 people last year. So my goal is to help Camille quadruple that number. All right, let's get into some fishing topics. I like this one a lot, and this was more of an organic one from a conversation I had, not necessarily a question from one of our listeners. But I was asked about the biggest influence in my fishing life. But not your dad or father figure or parent or mother figure or whatever. Like, I'm gonna go around the horn, and I'm gonna start with Dean. I feel like Caleb might mention someone on this podcast, but maybe not. You know what? I'm gonna say who mine was first, just to kind of set it up. Obviously, we all had our dads. My dad was a huge, the biggest influence, but not named my dad. I got to tell you, I was a bait guy. You know, growing up, I was throwing bait. I threw artificials for bass. When I was at A&M, there was a pond that I used to fish all the time. I've always fished, you know, multiple times, as much as I could. But I'm just going to be honest here. I really started throwing artificials when I was in college, And outside of my dad, who taught me a lot about that, one of our real good friends, Nick Mosley, his dad, Mike Mosley, was a huge influence, and my buddy Patrick Gardner's dad too. But Mike Mosley was a huge influence on properly throwing all kinds of different baits and how to approach things and what to look for and stuff like that. So shout out to the departed Mike Mosley. He was a big influence, and of course my buddy Tommy Dean. Outside of a parent, I don't even know, maybe your parent wasn't your biggest influence. What's your biggest influence in fishing?
Well, my dad was a big part of it. Two guys, and it's crazy, as long ago as it was, that I still remember. And it's two guys that nobody's ever heard of. When I was a kid, I grew up on Chocolate Bay, Chocolate Bayou. We had a little cabin at Lutz Marina on Chocolate Bayou. And there was a dude there that ran a bait camp, Big Larry, Captain Larry, big dude. And his buddy was Joe D. George. He built, back then, I mean, they built fiberglass rods. He built custom rods. And my mom and dad still have a matching set that he made for them probably in the 70s. And those guys, I mean, I remember as a kid, every single day, they would come in with a boatload of fish. And so these guys, the boats they ran was a fishing ski barge. Some of you may remember that back in the day. And so, and Big Larry, he would never put, it was the first self-bailing center console where you could leave the plugs out and it would sink. You get water in the boat, but it would run out. So Big Larry would always leave the plugs out of his boat, and he would just throw the fish into the boat and they'd be in there swimming around. It was like a floating live well. And but those guys, to me as a kid, they were the most amazing heroes. And I mean, I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be those guys. It was like they were some kind of mythical people. As a child looking at them, it was like, how do they do this? Every time they go out, they manage to find fish and catch fish. And so, yeah, as a child, I was heavily influenced, and probably two guys that had the one of the reasons why I do what I do today. But there's so many along the way. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is
to narrow it down. But those two, I still remember them from, 40 years ago.
They're like Dean said, there's a ton that got me to where I'm at. Or one fella taught me all about wading for big trout and corkies, and hell, Robert and Taylor taught me a heck of a lot about red fishing. If I say I have an influence right now, it's probably Scott, because that's about the only person I talk to anymore about just about anything, because most of my guys have moved on to wanting to hunt and stuff like that. And but as far as influences, this is going to sound kind of petty, but it's true. It's every SOB that has ever decided to open their mouth and doubt me on something.
Caleb, I'm so glad you brought that, because I was going to put a bow on this. I'm going to let you finish, but I was going to put a bow on this after Scott talked about it. Like, it's really just the I guess network that you pick up.
Yeah, I have a great network of people that have been selectively and carefully chosen and put in them in those places, and they're people I trust and that we have each other's backs. But the ones that drive me are the ones that think that they're looking cute and putting me down. I am out to make your day a pain in your ass every time, because I know that you're watching everything I do on social media. You can unfriend me and really teach me a lesson, but you damn sure didn't block me. And that's just who I am as a person. I'm getting out of bed to ruffle your feathers. That's where I live at.
I hadn't picked up on that.
Yeah.
So why are you a pain in my ass?
That's right. I thought you liked him.
Well, I mean, man, they're just shit I can't say on the air.
All of my stuff from way back came when I worked at Marburger Sporting Goods as a kid. And there was so many guys that just kind of took me under their wing, and took me out fishing. Marshall, he was something else. He was the dude in Galveston at that time. He was the man. And if Wendy had a day off and he needed to go find some fish, he'd say, "Come on, Stick, come get in the boat." And he knew I could find trout. And we'd go out and sometimes he'd just drop me off somewhere and tell me, hey, wade that shoreline, let me know what happens. And he just taught me a whole lot about reading the water and what to look for. Then I was dating a girl in high school, and her dad was unbelievable fisherman. I mean, just her dad and her uncle, and those two guys. This was in the days before limits, and you could sell trout and redfish. They were hook and line commercial fishermen.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
they threw lures and caught enough fish to sell, and they were something else. Really, really good at it, but learned a hell of a lot from those guys. But mostly it was just random people that I working at Marburgers as a kid that just took a liking to me or for whatever reason and said, hey man, come on, let's go fish. And they just take me out and off we'd go. Marshall Deal, I caught my biggest trout with Marshall Deal, and that was just a one-off. Hey man, I got an open spot tomorrow. I need to go scout for a trip. He was guiding, and he said, why don't you come on with me? Those were the ones that got me going. And fishing with my mom and dad, they threw bait. It was great. Learned a lot. Learned a lot about the bay and how to get around and all of those things. But when it comes to lure fishing, it was all those different folks I ran across as a kid.
Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, and that's kind of why I thought this would be a good topic, because it's ongoing. I mean, here I am at my age now and still picking up stuff from you guys mostly, just because we chat on air and off air. But it's something that is definitely gonna, once you get out on the water, ears open, and it's gonna help you. All right, let's get to some of the questions that we've gotten. And I don't have the actual particulars of what was asked here, but it was about adjusting to spring's unpredictability. Like you're going fishing, Dean. You're going fishing, and maybe not you personally if the weather's too bad. But like, you remember the days, and you've had days yourself even lately where you're like, dang it, I'm going to go out there. But it's spring, and here we are in March. How do you adjust to spring's unpredictability, or is that a trick question? Do you just have to kind of forge through it all? How do you do that?
Well, spring today feels like July here. So
no kidding.
Yeah.
91.
If you like a variety, you came to the right place. And then saying that today and looking ahead in the forecast, Saturday we have a cold front, a big north wind that's going to change dramatically. So I mean, you just deal with it. I mean, they're all through March, all through April, very challenging months for changing conditions. During spring break, it always turns to crap somewhere at least once. There's going to be a cold front that hits pretty consistently at that time of year. But I mean, you just it gets more consistent tides in the spring. I mean, right now the tides are creeping back up. We're not dealing with the very low water, and the water temperatures are creeping up. So the changing wind directions are the biggest for me where I'm at. It just adjusts how you drift. It adjusts the angles that you go at shorelines and islands and stuff like that. So it changes the currents in the bay. The wind creates a lot of current on our flats more than the tide. But I mean, you just go. I always hear people say, man, the weather this and the weather that. Man, if I waited for perfect days, I would never go fishing.
Exactly.
If I waited for the conditions that are gonna be your favorite and make you feel better about going, you better get a new hobby if you're waiting on that. But March and April are going to be a lot of changes in the conditions. So, but the temperature, the water temperature, of course, is not going to drop dramatically again. It's not going to lock them up. It's not going to make the fish, sit still or be lethargic. Water temperatures are going to stay warm. So, as challenging as it is, it can be very exciting time of year.
And I'm going to jump to Scott here because I remember you and I early on in this podcast, like 4 years ago, had this discussion, and I told you I like spring, I like March and April, and you're like, "Are you nuts?" But see, y'all are captains that book trips, and I'm a guy that can say, "Well, I'm not going this day. I'm going this day," because it's better or whatever. So I still think spring can be outstanding.
Well, it depends on what you're doing. A lot of my trips are polling trips with fly fishermen, and March and April suck for that. I mean, yeah, it can be awesome. Today would have been awesome. Today there's absolutely zero wind. The problem is people want to book a trip. They want to book it several weeks out or months out, and they want to say, okay, I want to go on March 14th.
Right.
All right, cool. Well, let's see what happens on March 14th because it's a coin flip in the springtime as to whether it's going to be blowing 85 or it's going to be blowing 0. You just never know. And a lot of that depends on their attitude towards it as well. I mean, I'll go. I'll get on the boat and I'll push pole. And if the wind's blowing real hard, we're just going to be going downwind most of the day. And I'm not going to fight that. But we can still catch fish. Everything's fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not as much fun, because it's like drive-by shooting. We're going to be poling down this flat, and all I'm going to be doing is just kind of steering the boat as we're flying by these fish, and hopefully you can really good caster because you're only going to get one shot, and it's going to be a quick one.
Yeah.
But then there's other days, that are booked way out in advance, and you wake up and it's freaking awesome out there. Springtime is tough on that. It is so up and down. The last 2 or 3 days here, zero wind, and I had to check the calendar. Sure enough, it's March. I was kind of surprised by that.
Yeah.
I changed up my my approach to paying my bills, which the paying the bills part isn't really working out, but the bad weather is. But after booking 4 or 5 days, 3 months out last year polling, and every day is blowing 25 and there was no rescheduling, I've gotten to where I'll book my stuff a week or 2 out when we can actually see the forecast. And a lot of people hit me up and I'm like, hey, look, what do you want to do? They tell me what they want to do. I was like, all right, then we're going to watch the weather. And if I see 7 days from now, how much time you need? A week? 7 days from now, it looks pretty decent. I'll call you and we'll get it together. Because, it like Scott said, we can go out any time. We can probably catch fish most of those times, but is it going to be enjoyable? We're going to catch a bunch. My game is sight casting redfish, and if it's blowing 20, it's really tough to do that.
Yeah.
Like you said, there's not a lot of variables to deal with right now other than wind directions. What was it yesterday? What is it now? And so
the other part of this, Caleb, is like, let's say you're taking a guy fishing, not polling, but just taking him fishing, and you're definitely going out. Or one of our listeners says, I got 3 days and I'm going. I think the other part of the question was like, how do you handle with, there's going to be winds, there's going to be fog in the morning. By the way, we have a fog question coming up, but it changes your approach. Like you have to be, at least I do, like you have to be willing to adjust and change on the fly.
Be cognitive of what's going on and what you have at your disposal. Matagorda, assuming it hasn't rained a ton, if it's going to be blowing, going to the river. I'm going to the diversion. I'm going somewhere where I can get out of that. If it's been flooding, but it's not really blowing, then I'm going to look and see where does the fresh water dump into the bay and how can I find that dividing line and stay away from that. It's spending the 48 hours before you go actually planning and looking at all the options you have and trying to make the best game plan you can to deal with it.
A whole lot of it is mental too. You got to get over that mental hurdle of, man, the wind's blowing so hard, this is going to suck. The fish are going to eat. And you just make the wind work for you. Work with the wind instead of trying to fight it all day. Find you an island where the wind's blowing a current around the corner. Get set up. Get set up where the wind currents are going to help you out and push some bait towards you, and the fish will stage up there. If it's blowing off of a flat, go to that drop off and fish along the edge of that drop off. There are some days when the wind's been blowing so hard for so long that the fish get stacked up in the coves on the windy side. It's a pain in the butt to fish, but the bait gets stacked up over there, gets pushed in by all the current, and doesn't get out as easily in some of those coves that go way back, and the fish will stack up in the back end of those coves.
Yeah.
So you got to get over that mental hurdle of how bad it sucks. And that you really, it's not ideal. It's not what I wanted. It's not, man, I really wish it was this, or I wish it was that. Keep wishing, because it's March.
The other thing, Dean, and I did this a lot when I was, I had my trailer over at Sabine, at Pleasure Island. And I think a lot of people can do this in pretty much any bay system. I would drag my boat. I keep it now down there in the marina in San Patricio. But like if the wind was blowing from the north, well, hell, I'd put up in Bridge City and fish that side of Sabine Lake. If it was blowing, and I bought a Louisiana license specifically so I could do this. If it's blowing real hard from the east or whatever, I would drag my boat across the bridge and put in Cameron, and I could fish that side of the lake, a little more comfortably. So like there are options even just where you put in.
Yeah, no doubt, man. And especially in my area, I mean, you got to make the run sometimes and battle the wind to get to where you want to be, and then set it up in just a different direction. I mean, my area is wide open, vast grass flats, and if the wind's blowing from the north, you go to the north end of wherever you're at and come back this way. And yeah, I mean, you put it on the trailer, you take it to places that are closer to where you want to fish and don't battle the wind. Some places that's a good option. Right around here, I mean, from Aransas Pass to Rockport to Corpus Christi, I mean, boat ramps everywhere. Lots of options. Some places, Matagorda doesn't have a lot of options. If you're going to fish West Bay, you got one boat ramp, and you're going to take a ride down the intercoastal, and you're going to take a ride down the diversion canal, and then you're going to cross the bay to get there. You can't really trailer. So it's kind of specific to where you're close to. It helps. But then there's days you can get as adventurous as you want to, load up and go to some place that you've never been before, and give it a shot. Those are always going to be tough, though, learning experiences. Whenever I have that, when the weather's changing, I go to my go-to stuff, where I go over there and say a Hail Mary, and hopefully it works out.
Yeah, I bought that Louisiana license specifically after that. I've mentioned it on the podcast. I did one tournament, one charity tournament down there, and I ran Sabine gets rough, man. You talk about sporty. Woo, baby. It gets pretty sporty. And I was just boom, boom, boom the whole way because I knew where I wanted to fish. And I'm like, I think next time I'm just going to put in over there in Cameron or wherever. It's near.
But
Cameron.
Coming home is sweet. It's a.
Not always. I was doing the ski thing. I was skiing on those things. I mean, surfing.
I've been in a situation where we left Salt Club on the west side, and I'm trying to get to the intercoastal on the northeast side.
Oh,
and man, we kept it a nice, easy 55, 60 leaving. Coming back, we were running a little bit late, so it was more of a 60, 65, and I bet it's twos and threes.
Yeah,
across that damn thing. It was we broke something, I'm sure. And like Dean said, it's situational as heck. When you get over in the grass flat, I've done well on really windy, miserable days on the grass flats because the fish are still moving around and doing what they were supposed to. Matagorda is going to muddy them, get nasty. Grass flats in Louisiana or Aransas Pass or somewhere, they're just going to continue. I don't know if I've ever fished Mansfield and it's below 25. Ever.
And we're going to face that. I mean, that's coming up in March and April with the big winds, where I launch out of the marina and I'm going straight into the southeast wind. And if you want to make it over to the shoreline of St. Joe, you're going to go across a big portion of Aransas Bay, and you just got to sit down and hold on. If you want to run over to East Flats on the backside of Mustang Island, and you're crossing the Corpus Christi Ship Channel, you just put it into the wind, and you catch the right angle and use the your island hopping tactics where you go from one island to the next.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's going to be a lot of that in the next 2 months.
Well, the
Those are
light
days
bulb
when I
came
say-
on for me is
Mhm.
Chuck McKinney, who's my guy down there in Corpus that, I probably run with the most down there. First time I was ever fishing with him out of a tower, it's blowing 15 to 25. And he said, nice calm days like this are great.
Oh
And I kinda
God.
looked at him like, what? He's like, oh yeah, this is perfect. We got 20 out of the southeast. This is great. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
Matagorda, we'd be so mad about this.
It wasn't a month ago. Dane and I were having a conversation, maybe dinner before or whatever. He goes, yeah, you need to go right over here. That's where we were, whatever. And I think it was BNR. And I went into the Corpus Christi channel. I was like, no, not today. I'm not doing that today. I'll try something else.
If you ever have to go from
the-
Copano to Port A across Aransas Pass, Aransas Bay, I think that bay scares me more than any bay on the coast. I've been across East Galveston when it's bad. Aransas Pass, it's something about in Galveston the waves get big and they're spaced out, and Aransas Bay, those suckers are like right in the kill you zone for some. I mean, everything's gonna break. Is when Daniel and I sheared the prop shaft in Copano and it ultimately cost us $125,000 because it took us out of the team of the year. We needed a 6-pound average to win team of the year.
Ouch.
Well, we were the whole day we were just pissed, and then Towboat US came and got us in that great big V bottom with the twin motors, and we were driving back across Aransas Bay, and I was watching that boat skipping on the end of that rope. I told Daniel, I said, you know what? It ain't that bad that we had to come get picked up by Towboat US because that looks terrible.
It is 125 though.
That's what you call the best of a bad situation.
And I'm not the glass half full guy. Never have been. Never will be. Pat's job is the half full side. The half empty one is the one that I make sure doesn't go unnoticed.
Boy, Pat is the half full guy. Scott, I know we're digging in on this topic. Like I said, we can save some topics for next week. But some of those you just got to kind of grin and bear it. I've mentioned mine, a couple of them. Dean did, Caleb did. You had to have one of those.
This past summer, trying to get around to the end of the damn jetties. Seemed like every day the wind was going right into the jetties and the tide was going out, and I was just going to get whooped going around there. It didn't matter what size. I could have been in a 50-foot Viking. It was going to whoop my butt. But I had one day that I took 2 waves over the front end of the general that got me on the console, on the raised console over the windshield. Those
Yikes.
Those get your attention.
Yeah,
but most of the days around here, I'm doing the Poland skiff thing, in the spring, and I've got 2 options. And everybody always said, "Well, where are we going to launch?" I said, "Well, we're going to wait and see what the wind does, because I really want to go fish on the island. I want to go over to, fish Contee and Fifth Lake and all those neat places back in there. But I have to leave out of Charlie's for that, and I got to go across about." I don't know, what's that, 5-6 miles across Espiritu Santos? That is a rough son of a gun.
7 miles.
Yeah, it is rough when it's blowing. Typically, my boat will do it and everything's cool, and I'll do it by myself, but I don't like getting customers wet. And if it's going to be blowing 15 or so, I ain't going that route. I'll go launch in Port O'Connor, and I've got plenty of places over there that I can stay hidden and zigzag around. We might have to make a corner somewhere and get hit by a little bit of wind, a little bit of waves, but we can duck back in pretty quick.
Yeah,
that's what I tell people. It's not where you're going; it's how you get there. Is the trick.
Make the plan.
Yeah, and there you go. That's why it was a good topic. All right, speaking of topics,
have we even got to a topic yet today?
Yeah, we've done 2. We did the fishing influences and spring's unpredictability. But that's why I like just kind of keeping it organic and flowing, because then we get some great stories like you guys have been telling and all that stuff. Speaking of topics, I was excited last night. Got in from work about 3:00. I told my wife, yeah, I'm going to put some topics together for the guys, and I'm going to look at some websites and see if there's anything that we can add, et cetera, et cetera. And she said, I've got a topic. I've got a question for the Bite Me podcast. And I was like, what? I was like, now, I was very excited that she did that, because she's only been fishing seriously for about a year. and it took her long enough. But she had a question about dolphin, but it wasn't your typical dolphin question. And I'm going to start with Dean on this one. The question might suck. You can tell me, but I thought it was kind of interesting. We've been married 39 years as of last weekend. It doesn't bother me. So I wrote it down because she actually stopped while I'm sitting on my chair, and she said, "Here's my question: Are dolphin more brazen?" Yes, she said brazen. Are dolphin more brazen because of us? And I said, "What do you mean?" Because we were fishing this weekend, Dean, and it was hit and miss. And we've talked about this aspect of it in the past, where like sometimes you see dolphin, and you catch a fish, and or whatever, you see dolphin, and it shuts down immediately. And sometimes you see dolphin, and it opens up. But what she was noticing is, and maybe it's just because she's been in the game for such a short time, she was saying they just seem to be like competing with us more. And so her question was, because of trout populations, because of fewer, more boats on the water, maybe fewer fish, are the dolphin, which are very, very smart, are they maybe a little more comfortable getting closer to us?
Well, it not a dumb animal. I mean, they can jump through a fiery hoop with the right encouragement. So they learn and they understand that people and boats equal handouts and fish. I think more than anything, they've learned. And I mean, people go out there, especially in my neighborhood, they have dolphin tours. They have a lot of interaction with people with dolphins. They give them handouts. They feed them from the boat, which I think technically is again the law, but if you don't get caught, it's not enforced. But dolphins relate boats and people to food. I think I don't know if they're more brazen. They're more smarter. They're more. And I've had this conversation with guys around the neighborhood a lot. I mean, people think or say that there's more dolphins out there than there ever were. There's got to be some people who track that. I mean, we've had turtle experts on the show. We've had, experts. We need a dolphinologist to come on here and explain. Somebody must be counting them. I mean, they count everything. They count shrimp, they count crabs, and it would be I'm curious to know if what we're seeing, if the science backs that up, that the populations of dolphins are increasing. I don't know. Dolphins kind of the top of the food chain. I don't know what a predator, what's going to eat a dolphin, a shark maybe, but I've seen sharks offshore swarming on a shrimp boat, and then dolphins show up and the sharks leave. So they've evolved. They're smarter. They relate people to food, and they're a pain in the ass.
So was it a bad question, Caleb? You can say it if it was.
No, it was great. Did she stir the sauce while you're making it?
Did she what?
They're smart critters, man. You hear about those people that are trying to release a trout and that sucker's sitting beside them by a lab and going and getting under it.
Oh,
it's a smart animal. We went to way back when we went to Florida, and I'm not going to get my man card revoked for this, I hope, because my wife made me do it. But we went on a dolphin watching trip. Like, I hadn't seen a damn dolphin before.
I'm on one of those every time I go fishing.
$100 to go look at a stupid dolphin, dude.
I'll charge you 50.
But did it jump through a fiery ring?
It did not. My wife taught me to jump in the water with it, and it sack tapped me, which wasn't great.
Oh wow!
But anyway, in Florida, it's a felony to feed a dolphin. It's a felony. It's a big deal. It's a big deal. You do not feed a dolphin in Florida. And so we're out there, and the dude on the boat had this little Velcro strap, and he waved it all over the water, and all the dolphin came up and looked at it. I was like, "You've been out here feeding them. You didn't teach them to like Velcro, dog." But the point is, like, they saw that one little thing wagging, like, "Ooh, food, here we come." And wow. I mean, I could see them being trained into it anyway.
The numbers are higher, Scott. No question about it. I don't need a scientist to tell me that.
No, I see way more of them than I ever saw before, and they are more brazen. I mean, I never had them coming up to me at the jetties years ago, but now they circle the boat and hang out. And when we're out there trying to catch tarpon and the ladyfish show up, shame on them ladyfish, because every one of them that we catch gets eaten. And what's cool is it's almost like a nursery over around the jetties here in Port O'Connor. In the summertime, you'll have mama dolphins with all their babies, and they're teaching them how to feed and how to chase fish. And it's pretty cool. They'll grab those ladyfish from us and they'll shake them and then throw them over there in front of the baby and let the baby catch it.
Oh, wow.
And, it's kind of cool to watch. But yeah, there's more of them now than I can ever recall seeing in the past. And I hear people complaining about it all the time and saying, we got to do something about all these dolphins. They're eating all the trout. There ain't nothing you can do about it. Yeah. I mean, they're a protected mammal. You are not going to mess with them. And I do know and have heard the stories. The old timers didn't take too kindly to the dolphins, and they shot a lot of them.
Yeah,
and,
that
was a kind of common deal.
I googled brazen. I figured I was learning a new word to my repertoire.
That's good. So you can use it. Yeah, that's the word of the day. You can use it.
Brazen, bold and without shame.
Yeah.
So we have dolphins that are without shame.
They're bolder. They're without shame.
I like the without shame part. But John, here's one that happened. I got a witness right here. Me and John were fishing, and we had the dolphins on one side of the boat. We're hooking speckled trout. They would grab those trout and maim them while they were on the hook. It
was the damnedest thing I've seen.
They would actually wound them, let us bring them in, and when we tossed them back, they were like just picking up wounded trout.
The funniest thing about that,
like they had it. It was like, I mean, it was a strategy.
Yes, 100%. They're so smart. The funniest thing or strangest thing was we would catch a trout, and they would put their mouths on the trout as we're reeling it in, but they wouldn't eat it. They would just kind of hold it to the point that they were taking drag. Like they would take drag off my reel, but not like if they wanted to, they'd snap my the line right off. But they were just like holding it, maiming it, as you said, and then they'd let it go. I'd reel it in, and so much, they've got their fishes cooked, so to speak.
Yeah.
Years ago, we were over by Mud Island. I had the girls out there. That was a long time ago. They were little, and the dolphin showed up, and we were catching little dink trout. We were trying to get enough for a fish fry. We had some friends coming down. We had a house rented, and so every fish was just like an inch under, inch under, half inch under, and the dolphin were just tearing us up. So I decided to move. We moved, and they followed us. This time though, we got into a few little bit bigger ones, and they were still eating the ones we were throwing back, and then one of the girls caught one that was 16, 17 inch, good one. Finally got one that we can throw in the cooler. And I'll never forget standing there unhooking that thing, standing on my shallow sport. I'm unhooking this thing, and this dolphin raises its head up out of the water and looks at me and starts chastising me when I throw it in the ice chest. I mean, it literally did the flipper thing, man. And was mad that we threw that one in the ice chest.
Like, what are you doing, man?
Hey, you got plenty. But Erin, she was probably 6-7 years old, and she reached over the side to wash her hands after holding one of the fish, and the dolphin came up and bumped her in the hands.
Oh my gosh.
Kind of freaked her out a little bit.
Yeah,
and she thought it was cool.
It freaked me out. That's for sure. So we have some other topics here that we're going to hold off, but there's a couple of timely ones. One for sure, Caleb, I'm going to start with you on this because the tarpon question, we can get to that because the tarpon aren't going to be here anytime real soon. But this past week, I don't know if you went out this weekend or not this week, Caleb, because I got a question about the do's and don'ts of when fog hits. And I know that this person was out Sunday morning or didn't go out Sunday morning because the fog was brutal on Sunday and then Monday as well. And I got that question like Sunday afternoon. And so like, hey guys, what are some of the things that you do when the fog hits this time of year? So Caleb, hit it.
And this is a tough one to say because a buddy of mine got absolutely ran over in his boat putting while he got ran over by a guy that was hauling ass, and I'm not sure whose fault it was. He's kind of not getting out of the way in a spot that people run at, and the same time another dude's running where he can't see. I know me personally, there's a lot of catch-22s in the fog. I don't like to turn on my lights because the fog blinds me, but maybe it helps the other guy see me. And I guess we're talking about the density of the fog too, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking about fog that's noticeable, if I'm in a boat lane, I'm trying to hang on the right side as much as I can. So hopefully the other guy realizes we're in America, which people forget that when they're in the boat and they drive on the right side of the boat lane as well, right? Don't shut down in the middle of an intercoastal or something like that. I really am against waiting out whenever, especially early in the morning with the fog. There's been times in tournaments. I mean, I don't know how much I can contribute to this because there's so much damned if you do, damned if you don't scenarios in the fog. But one thing I can contribute, and then I'll hand it off to smarter people than me, is I have been in trout tournaments when it's super foggy. And what I'll do is in this particular instance, we're waiting shorelines that people run down, and I park my boat in such a way that I get out of it and I'm waiting in line with that boat where they're going to hit that boat before they hit me. And I mean, that's probably the only like this will work scenario that I can come up with, in the fog.
Dean, the thing about fog is I'll wait and wait and wait. And then, but some people, you just feel like you need to go out. Oh, it's not that bad. And then you're out on the water and you realize how bad it is. I would err to the side of caution. But I'm not going to sit here and lie. I mean, I've been out there like, man, I want to get out there, and I'm doing some of the things that Caleb was talking about. But it's dicey, it's scary. I don't like fog more than I don't like just about anything that we see out there.
Are you talking to me?
No, that was Dean. I think he froze up.
Dean froze up.
Yeah,
I got that moment. I got that moment where like, shit, did the teacher ask me that? I was squeezed out.
Go ahead, Dean.
I don't know. My Wi-Fi might be slowing down a little bit over here. I've learned lessons the hard way in the fog.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can leave the ramp and it looks doable and you get a mile away and then it's just a whiteout. I had one day where I was putting in, couldn't see the front of the boat, and I'm at idle speed, and then out of the fog, I hear some guy start yelling, hey, he's just frantic. And I stopped the boat and I'm like, hey. And this voice from very close says, don't hit me. And I was like, where are you at?
Where are you at?
And I continued idling, never saw him, but I mean, it was that close. The best advice I can give anybody is wait. If it's not mandatory, try to be patient. The fog's not going to last all day. It's going to be an early morning thing and the sun's going to burn it off. Don't put yourself in a dangerous position. And Caleb, you know who was wrong when those two boats ran into each other? Both of them for being out there.
Yeah.
And that's just, you put yourself in a situation with potential for disaster. So live to fish another day. Fog is unpredictable. I've seen it roll in the afternoon. I mean, I've watched it come, and if you're lucky enough that it's coming in the direction that you have the boat ramp on the clear side, but some days you have to turn and go straight into it to get to, off the water. So it's a lot like the thunderstorms. Don't wait till the last minute. Don't wait till the last split second. If you know it's there, if you know it's coming, lean towards the safe decision.
That area you're in, I have launched there and it was kind of light fog. I'm like, yeah, we'll just take it easy. It'll burn off in a little bit. And by 3 p.m., it was 10 times worse than when we
Oh
launched.
yeah. Oh yeah.
I'll never forget it. That channel coming up from the jetties, I'm putting along in it, and I bet maybe 30 yards in front of me, all of a sudden the shadow appears, and it's one of those great big tankers, like the prop is bigger than my boat, and I didn't see it until I was 30 feet away from the dang thing. It's wild stuff.
I was going from Matagorda Harbor. I was going to the cut to go into East Bay, and I'm running just up on plane in the fog, and right is way too close for comfort. I run up on a barge, a tugboat that's parked on the side, because I'm running the edge where I can kind of watch the shoreline. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what is this building in front of me? I was like, there's no buildings out here. And yeah, it was a tugboat and a barge parked on the side, which was a near miss. And yeah, you learn lessons the hard way someday.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Scott, I know that these guys covered it thoroughly, but I do want to know if you have anything to add. That exact scenario that Dean was talking about happened to me on East Matagorda. The fog was coming from the west, and I'm like, that's pretty thick. I might try to outrun it. And unfortunately, I did have the ramp, toward the clear side. But man, I mean, it's just so unpredictable.
Yeah, I got caught in West Bay in Galveston like that, and left the ramp right at daylight, and it was clear as a bell. And got part of the way over there and I literally ran that every day. I mean, anybody that knew me from fishing over there, I was going to greens. That was, my boat knew how to get there without me. But that day it did not, because about the time I hit Jones Lake, all of a sudden it was just white out. And I said, it was so clear at the ramp. It's got to, this just got to be a little blip in the matrix here, So I just slowed down and started putting along, and I absolutely got lost going to Greens Lake.
That's the other thing. We didn't even talk about that.
Every damn day. I had no idea where I was.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nothing. There was no landmarks. There was no nothing. And I don't, the Poland skiff, I didn't run a GPS or anything. And I'm just kind of puttering along there, and I look over and I see a little bayou that leads in. I said, I must have got here already. I'm in the right spot. So I made the turn in there, and we started poling. The fishing was fine. I mean, the reds were popping. Everything was blowing up back there.
Where you thought you were.
We're poling along, and I had no idea where I am. I mean, absolutely none. And I thought I'd made it all the way to Greens. And for those of you that know that area, I'd, running from Jones, and I ended up in the Pierce Marsh, which is way, 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 way short of Greens. I mean, like not even halfway there. When the fog finally lifted, I looked around. I was like, I'll be damned. I'm in Pierce Marsh. This is pretty cool.
Didn't have to burn as much.
I didn't burn any gas.
And back in the day, my very first boat didn't have any electronics. I had a compass. Boy, you talk about fun. Yeah. You're trying to, northeast. Am I doing this right? Man, those days were brutal.
My advice on fog is just don't. When it's that thick fog where you can't see at all, I mean, just don't do it. I mean, it's extremely unsafe. Almost every bad boat wreck that I ever hear of that happens during daylight hours happens because of fog.
Yeah.
If you get caught in it, you have to deal with it, but don't jump into it intentionally.
Exactly. All right. What would Scott do? What would Caleb do? What would Dean do? I was looking, if you can get out pretty soon here, Caleb, you might be all right, unless it's changed since I looked this morning. But how's the fishing been, and what would you do now?
I was looking today, and I was like, man, I wish I wasn't stuck behind this computer. That wind showed us look. Now I'd like to go out there and see if they're schooling and all that kind of cool stuff. Mm-hmm. Believe it or not, this weekend we've got a northern coming through, and it's like the wind's going to be blasting again. Go to Minute Maid, watch the bananas. That's what I would do on Saturday. Friday, you've got low winds, low barometer, pre-front, all the way up until about midnight Saturday. So, yeah, go fishing on Friday evening. That's what looks good to me. I think you could drift, wade, do anything you want right now.
Scott?
Yeah, he stole it. I was looking at Friday. If y'all got a chance, either take off on Friday or take off early on Fridays. That's probably about your best shot. Saturday, I got 25 gusting to 35 at daylight here out of the north, and temperature dropping pretty quick. Yeah, I'll pass on Saturday. But if you can slip out there on Friday, the water levels have come back up. Everything's looking a whole lot better on that end of things. We don't have those super low tides anymore. Water's warmer, and everything should be happening pretty good. I mean, we should be like in full on spring mode.
And the only day that looks bad in the next 10 days is Saturday. I mean, behind it rebounds pretty quick. We got fog tomorrow.
Yeah. That's why it was like I got that text and I was like, and then that message, and I was like, okay, this guy was out stuck in the fog today.
Oh yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
I had to take the dogs to the vet yesterday morning, and got to go into Port Lavaca to take the dogs into the vet, and we had like a 7:30 in the morning appointment. And Camille's like, we'll just leave here around 7. I looked outside and I was like, nah. And that was like 9 o'clock at night the night before. I said, nah, I better plan on about 45 minutes to an hour to get there. And sure enough, it took me close to an hour to get into Port Lavaca from here.
Yeah.
It was foggy, man.
Well, it's a fun show, man.
We're coming up on the new moon. The tides are fluctuating. I mean, there's current all day long. It starts out kind of low, comes in strong all day. So, I mean, except for Saturday, man, it looks like some great fishing for the next week.
Yeah, get out there. Fun show. I love the stories today from these OG Sauce pro staffers. And don't forget to book them for your trip. It is spring, and the reason I've mentioned that a couple of times in the last few episodes is because I know spring break is coming up. Maybe some people have some openings. Captain Dean, you can reach him on all the social media. Captain Caleb TV, you know how to reach him. You can reach him all through me, but you can reach him directly. ScottNallPhotography.com if you want to get some Bite Me gear, and you can reach Captain Scott on all his social media. And we're going to come up with something. We'll come up with something for the 10,000th random drawing. We got some suggestions here. I'm going to mark them down. Glenn and who was the other one? I forget. Maybe Brandon. Anyway, we'll come up with something and we'll have a random drawing. Maybe a package of stuff that we can give.
We need a giant wheel. A giant wheel with 10,000 names on it.
Well, I'll let you start on that. Go get some construction paper. Go get some construction paper. See what you can
put Carrie on it.
Yeah, Carrie will do it. I'm sure she won't have anything to say about that.
She's industrious.
Yeah,
spin the wheel, win a prize.
Yeah, maybe we'll come up with something. So you guys, appreciate everybody listening and subscribing and joining the Facebook group page. We'll come up with something on that. Like I said, get out fishing ASAP, man. Tell them that we're sending you and we'll write you a note. So you guys have a great time. I know Captain Caleb's got his baseball going on, so we are out of here. Catch him up. Until then, we will talk to you next time.